She was a self-proclaimed psychic, a medium who claimed she could speak to the dead. Little did her clients know Kate Bender wasn't just talking to spirits, she was busy creating them. Tucked away in a small cabin in Labette County, Kansas, the Bender family ran a business where guests checked in, but their souls never checked out. Today, we're digging into the cellar of the infamous Bender Inn to uncover the secrets of the family that vanished into thin air. You're listening to Lurking in the Shadows.
Hello, Shadows.
Hello. Welcome back.
Yes, I'm Kirsten.
And I'm Amber.
And we're your hosts.
Yeah, maybe I'll just let you do it.
I know we always try to
We
say it at
struggle.
the same time, and it hasn't worked out once yet.
No. So maybe we'll just give up. Sometimes you have to just accept if you're not good at something.
Yeah, it's true.
It's true. So another case today, Kirsten, that I think you haven't really heard of, right?
No, I don't think so.
Well, I'm going
I've
to tell
maybe heard the name, but I don't know really anything about it.
Okay, so you may have at least heard the name because I had never heard the name. I will tell you guys my funny little story how I found this. So moving cross country from South Carolina to Colorado, you travel through the entire great state of Kansas. Kansas has absolutely nothing. I'm not even kidding you. That state is just desolate, dry, no trees. You can see for miles. There is nothing there. So
No
jokingly,
wonder
we
why
were
they get slammed with tornadoes.
yeah. Oh my, and you could see the tornado damage. Like every once in a while we'd pass where there were some trees and you could see them all twisted up and stuff. It's crazy. Like
Yeah.
that is a harsh environment and like there's nothing there, I'm telling you. Tumbleweeds. Like so like Courage the Cowardly Dog, if you guys ever watched that, that is Kansas. Okay, just their little
That was my
farm
show.
out there in the middle of nowhere. Yep. So as we're driving along, I was like, man, you could get away with murder out here. Like you could kill how many people and just throw them out in the middle of nowhere and nobody would know because it's so vast. Like, so I wound up
Don't give
Googling.
anybody any ideas now.
I know, right? Stay out of Kansas. It's not worth it. So I ended up Googling serial killers because I knew BTK was out of Kansas. And this came up in my search as the Bloody Benders. So I decided to dive into that. So if you ever visit Kansas, just be prepared to be absolutely bored out of your mind for like 8 hours.
Yeah, it's not on my list of places to visit.
No, I'll consider driving through it. Knocked it off the list.
None of Tornado Alley, really. Like, not Oklahoma, not Nebraska. No, thank you. No offense.
No, I mean, I want to visit as many states as I can, but like I have to find something I really want to do in them to like go visit them.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's
Driving through it
dive in.
counts.
Yeah. See, I'm gonna make it count. I spent 8 hours in that place technically, like
Yeah,
driving.
exactly.
So, has to count for something. All right, so we're gonna dive on in here. On May 20th, 1862, Abraham Lincoln signed the Homestead Act. He enticed settlers with 160 acres of public land out west. In exchange, they paid a small filing fee and were required to stay on that land for 5 years. And then they would receive ownership of that land, or after 6 months, they could buy the land at $1.25 an acre. That's $200 then, or $6,418 today. So you can imagine Kansas back in 1908. I know I'm going to do that 1,000 times, so I will try and correct myself. It's 18. We are in the 1800s in this. So if I say 19, I apologize. So you can imagine Kansas back in 1860s and 1870s was very desolate. It still is. Nothing really changed. But there were very little people, obviously, that were out there yet. There was really no need for businesses when the land was barely settled. But in spring of 1873 in Labette County, a member of the Kansas Senate named Colonel Alexander M. York went searching for his missing brother. The brother's name was Dr. William York. He was riding in a roadster around Kansas, sightseeing while also searching for his missing friend. He made his way to Independence, Kansas, contacted his family, and decided to head back home. The long stretch of road leading out has two towns in between it, Drum Creek and Big Hill. In between these two tiny towns was the Bender settlement. The Osage Mission Trail was outside of Independence, and there is no trace of York after he had traveled the Osage Trail. They are a well off family with a lot of influence, so his disappearance caused a lot of attention. He went missing while he was searching for his friend George Longcore, who went missing with his daughter months earlier. While Alexander searched for his brother, William, it led him to an area with a few homesteads settled. This was off of the Osage Mission Trail, a frequent stop for travel. I know, but yeah, because this is in Kansas, so it's all out in that area. And I mean, um, the mention of indigenous people do come up later on because I mean, it's that era at this time. I do know it was May of last year, so if you scroll back that far, you'll be able to find it. Yeah. Yeah, because May is, um, that month that they I don't know the official name of it. You probably know. I heard something like that. Yeah, it's, like, for the whole month. Yeah, maybe, yeah. I'll check that out. Get a little history in there too. Uh, so this was off of the Osage Mission Trail, which was a frequent stop for travelers because the Bender family homestead offered food and shelter for the night for people passing through town. So let me introduce you to the Bender family. John Bender Sr., who was around 60 years old, he hardly spoke any English, and his voice was described as very gruff. So it was really hard to understand him no matter what he was saying. Uh, they believe it was German because they found a lot of German influence. Like, and everybody else had they are suspecting a German accent. And I'll go over their background, but we couldn't find a definitive answers of what country they come from. We just have some like suspicions of where they exactly came from. But we don't know if that's their actual real last name either. Yeah. Because Bender to me is not obviously I mean, I don't know anything about, like, German last names, but to me, it doesn't seem German. The mother was Elvira Bender. She was 55 years old and was apparently unfriendly. She spoke very little English as well, and neighbors would call her the, quote, "she-devil." Yeah. 25-year-old John Bender Jr. was the son. He was described as handsome with a mustache and auburn hair. He spoke fluent English but had a German accent. He was described having some quirks. The daughter was Katie Bender. She was around 23 years old, but I also saw other reports she was younger. She was classy and beautiful and spoke fluent English with a minor accent. She claimed to be a healer and a psychic and would pass flyers around to travelers advertising her healing powers and supernatural powers. She was a spiritualist. She did seances and taught spiritualism. She advocated free love, and that made her pretty popular. And that is a unique way of thinking way back in the 1870s. Her advertising is what helped bring business into the Bender's home. The son and daughter tended to customers while the parents kept to themselves most of the time. The background of this family was a bit choppy, but John Sr. was either from Germany, Norway, or Netherlands. His real name was thought to be John Flickinger, but that was disproved to be John Bender, so his real identity is unknown. Elvira was born in the Adirondack Mountains. She married a man named Simon Mark. They had 12 children together.
Oh my.
Yeah. She then married a man named William Stephen Griffith. After you hear this full story, it's not hard to believe. It's alleged that she killed multiple of her husbands.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But this was never proven. It was reported that Katie is her fifth daughter. Elvira was also born Almira until she changed her name.
Hmm.
Some of the neighbors believe that John and Katie were actually married and not siblings. Or they could have been both. Who knows? It's the era.
Yeah, sure. 1800s. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? An author named Lee Ralph traced the Benders' history, and he found in 1870 a record of these names that he believed as the Benders, and their ages were 53-year-old John, 49-year-old Mary, 24-year-old John, and 13-year-old Catherine. And they were all located in Decatur, Illinois at that time when he traced it.
Hmm.
And then he found in October of 1870, 5 spiritualist families made their way to the Osage Mission Trail to settle, capitalizing on the 160 acres that were promised. The boys traveled out to build the homestead while the ladies stayed behind. In about a year, a cabin, a barn with a corral, and a well was constructed. The cabin was split into 2 sections with a leather wagon cover. The small back area was the living quarters, and the front area was used as a general store where they sold dry goods to travelers. This was also where the kitchen and the dining area was if travelers wanted to stay for a meal. In the fall of 1871, after the construction was finished, that is when the ladies joined the men out there. The ladies got started on planting an apple orchard and a vegetable garden over 2 acres of their land. When they were settled on the farm, the elder Benders really kept to themselves, and the younger 2 were more active with people and even attended church on Sundays. I have a few quotes from neighbors of the Benders that I wanted to read so you can get the idea of the vibe of these people. Quote, "The old man was a repulsive, hideous brute without a redeeming trait, dirty, profane, and ill-tempered." End quote.
Okay.
And then,
Shots fired.
yeah, he didn't give a fuck back then. And then, quote, "Old Mrs. Bender was a dirty old Dutch crone. Her face was a fit picture of the midnight hag that wove the spell murderous ambition about the soul of Macbeth." End quote.
All right, so I take it they weren't the greatest looking couple.
So that's what I got for you.
It's pretty bad for your neighbors to say that.
Yeah, and there was like other way longer quotes that I didn't include, but yeah, they were all bad. Once the Benders had settled in, a strange thing began happening. Dead bodies began showing up. The first body was found dumped in Drum Creek in May of 1871. His name was William Jones. His skull was crushed and his throat was slashed.
Oh, wow.
The man who owned the lands where his body was found was suspected, but no charges were ever filed. 2 bodies were then found in February 1872 with the skulls crushed and slit throats like before. And by 1873, the numbers of reports of missing people traveling along the trail was significant enough that other travelers began avoiding the trail altogether. Back then, along this trail, horse thieves were a problem for travelers, so a lot of people were suspecting this criminal activity was to blame for all of the disappearances. The community tried taking things into their own hands by arresting those they thought were committing these murders, and they even drove some guys out of town that they thought were doing it, but in the end, their efforts were not headed in the right direction. The Benders at the time of all of these discoveries are living their lives, bringing in money from unsuspecting travelers. Later that year, in the winter of 1872, a man by the name George Newton Longcore and his baby daughter named Mary Ann left Independence, Kansas to head to Iowa to start a new life. They unfortunately traveled to the Osage Trail and were never heard from again.
Someone killed a baby.
Yeah, I go more into detail of their story later. That one's pretty sad, actually. That one's probably the saddest one of all these. In the spring the next year, this is when Dr. William Henry York left to go look for his neighbor that never returned. He followed the trail, questioning homesteaders along the way. It was reported he made it to Fort Scott and then turned around to come back on March 9th. His one brother named Ed lived in Fort Scott, and his other brother, Alexander, knew about his travel plans. Colonel Alexander was not only a member of the state Senate, but was also a lawyer and a Civil War veteran. Using his connections, Alexander was able to get around 50 men together to search for his brother. They questioned every home they came to and every traveler they passed. It was March 28, 1873, when Alexander and a man known as Mr. Johnson arrived at the Bender Inn. He explained that his brother was missing. The Benders admitted that Dr. York had stayed there, but said that he had left and could have possibly encountered some trouble with some indigenous people. Of course, they didn't use that language back then, but...
Oh, yeah, of course.
The men agreed that was possible and decided to stay for dinner. The men didn't return until April 3rd. This time, a woman had escaped after Elvira threatened her with knives. The colonel brought a bunch of armed men with him demanding answers, but Elvira pulled the "I don't speak English" card, and the younger Benders said they didn't know what they were talking about. But after Colonel pushed more, suddenly Elvira could speak English, claiming that the woman was a witch who cursed her coffee and made the other travelers leave.
Okay.
Yeah. Kate tried offering her services to York before he left, saying she could help him find his brother. She asked if he would come back alone that Friday night, and he, of course, declined. Him and his friends believe that the Benders are guilty of something, but York insisted to everyone not to do anything until they had the evidence.
Why'd she want him to come back alone?
Yeah, why would she want him to come back alone?
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the town wanted to hang them already. They did, like, that's the time, like, everybody was like, we hang them.
So did they hate the two children too?
Yeah, it's like collectively the whole family. But of course, I'm sure Kate was probably using that class and oh, innocent me, little me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do a thing.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. At this point, since there's still so many disappearances, but with no answers, rumors started to spread around, even to surrounding communities. They were saying that the Osage community as a whole is responsible for the disappearances. This, in turn, caused the Osage community to call a meeting at the Harmony Grove schoolhouse. 75 community members came out, including Colonel and both the Bender boys. After discussing the missing people, including William York, and the murder victims, the community decided the best solution was to get a search warrant to search homesteads from Big Hill Creek and Drum Creek. From Big Hill Creek to Drum Creek. Where are you? Okay. Since the Benders were at this meeting, they got the heads up that a search of their inn was coming, because they're going to search everybody. Billy Toll, a local of the community, was driving his cattle past the Benders' property only 3 days after the town meeting. He noticed the farm appeared to be abandoned and the animals were unfed. He took this information to the local township authority, but due to poor weather, it took them multiple days before they could go search the farm. The township asked for the locals' help in searching the Benders' property, and a few hundred came out to help. Obviously, the rumors had been flying around for this kind of turnout, and when everybody arrived at the inn, they found no trace of the Benders. No food, no clothes, or personal supplies to survive, and the
Hmm.
place was pretty much empty. One thing they noticed when they did enter the home was the foul smell coming from under a bed. When they moved the bed, they found a trapped door that was nailed closed. They pried it open and found a big pool of coagulated blood.
Ew.
This hatch under the bed was 6 feet deep, 7 feet long, and 3 feet wide. They began digging where the blood was, but found no bodies. The floor was tore up, but again, nothing was found.
Hmm.
They even collectively lifted the cabin up and moved it off of its foundation so they could more thoroughly search beneath the house, but again, nothing was found.
Interesting.
They, yeah. They then turned their attention to the vegetable garden that seemed to have fresh turned dirt on top. They took metal poles and for hours poked around the dirt, hoping to find something. After a few hours of searching, Dr. York's body was found buried only a few inches below the dirt. He was face down in a shallow grave, officially being found on May 6, 1873. The group of searchers continued looking for more graves until around midnight that night. They spent the evening finding an additional 9 areas that they marked, believing bodies were buried there. The next morning, they came back out to try and dig up the suspected graves. In the 9 spots they marked, 8 bodies would be found in 7 of those spots. They found an additional body in the well on the property with other body parts that were found. All but one body was found with the skull smashed, and with the skull smashed with what they believed to be a hammer, and the throats were slit.
Hmm.
A little girl was found among the victims, and she had no apparent signs of how she had died, so it was suspected that she was either strangled or buried alive.
Oh my god.
After finding these bodies, the town was outraged. They found a friend of the Benders. The only name I found for him was Brockman. The townspeople were so angry trying to get answers out of him, they hung him up in a barn until he was unconscious repeatedly to try and get answers out of him.
Wow.
Yeah, just like choked him out trying to torture him to get information. They eventually let him go, but with this town seeming to almost go wild over this horrible crime, this also brought the news reporters from all over, including popular stations like Harper's Weekly. Reporters from Chicago and New York City even came out to get a piece of this crazy story coming out of a small town in Kansas.
Hmm.
Now,
Time to be alive.
right? That,
Hmm.
I mean, can you imagine 1870s? What the hell's going on? I'd
No.
probably jump on my horse and go out there too.
Yeah, I know. Like, literally, what else are you doing
What
but
else are
work
you
on your
doing?
horse?
It's Kansas.
Yeah.
Now that there were reporters that were not only reporting on the Bender story, but also the reaction of the local community, Colonel Alexander decided to pay Officer Leroy Dick and Detective Thomas Beers to take over this investigation. But it had been a good 3 weeks since the Benders left, so they had a huge head start. At
Yeah.
this point, they believe they can tie 14 murder victims back to the Benders.
Hmm.
A Roman Catholic prayer book was found in the cabin that contained a few dates and German notes. 3 different hammers, including a sledgehammer, a claw hammer, and a shoe hammer, were also found. The son of Leroy Dick donated these 3 hammers to the Bender Museum in 1967. That one I did mean 1967. They were displayed until 1978 when the building was made into a fire station. A knife with a 4-inch blade that was found was given to the Kansas Museum of History along with the other stuff that needed a new location. Unfortunately, that is the only thing reportedly found because souvenir hunters demolished the cabin piece by piece. They even stole every brick that lined the cellar. It was reported over 3,000 people came to just visit the site of the Bender's Inn.
Hmm.
But detectives had nothing to go on, honestly. They thought they may have fled in the direction of independence, but weren't sure. Between Colonel Alexander and the governor of Kansas, a $3,000 reward was put out for the arrest of all four Benders. This is what was suspected that the Benders were doing to their travelers. Their method was a very calculated and brutal way to take out their victims. It was reported that they would seat their guests in a, quote, spot of honor at the dinner table, specifically choosing a chair backed against a leather curtain, the leather curtain that split the house into two. And that leather curtain hid the rest of the other half of the house. This seat was positioned directly over a hidden trap door leading to the cellar.
Hmm.
While the daughter Kate occupied the guest's attention, one of the Bender men would emerge from behind the curtain to deliver a fatal blow to the head with a hammer. To make absolutely certain that the job was finished, one of the women would then slit the victim's throat before the body was dumped through the floorboards.
Hmm.
Once the victim was in the basement, the family would strip them of all their belongings and bury them under the cover of night, usually in the orchard or on the property. What baffled investigators most was the motive. While some guests were carrying fortunes, others had next to nothing, suggesting that the family may have been motivated by evil intentions than by simple robbery.
Yeah, I'm just gonna ask. So, what are they doing with these people?
Yeah, I mean, they were like robbing them and getting money out of it, but not all of them.
Hmm. Right. Hmm.
A man by the name William Pickering was interviewed because he had previously stayed at the inn and had escaped. He was able to confirm the Bender's method when he retold that when he was offered the seat by the leather tarp, he refused it because of a noticeable stain in the seat. Kate threatened him with a knife because of his refusal, so he ran out of there. Another similar story came from a Catholic priest named Father Paul. I'm going to butcher this. Ponziglione. He said he saw one of the Bender boys hide a hammer under their jacket, which of course made him nervous, so he left. Another reported story was from a Mrs. Fitz, who stated she was sitting at the table when she heard muffles behind her and Kate shouted a command. Fitz, already on edge, got up and ran out of there.
Hmm.
The Benders would sell the belongings of their victims, including horses, saddles, clothes, and other valuable items. They used the excuse that if a customer couldn't pay for their stay, they would pay the Benders in goods instead, which honestly, like, that's a believable excuse, is it not? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like that's believable. That's a
Yeah.
like,
Back then.
I give them props for coming up with a solid excuse that somebody would look past
Hmm.
because, yeah,
Yeah.
I would be like, yeah, you know what? It's just, we're just living in 1870s. He couldn't pay, so he gave his
Hmm.
horse, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
In another chilling account, two men visited the inn specifically to seek Kate Bender to try her psychic abilities. However, when it came time for dinner, they felt a sense of unease. They flatly refused to sit in the guest of honor chair near the curtain, insisting on eating at the shop counter instead. The sudden change of plans caused Kate's friendly mask to slip. She became hostile and abusive when the Bender men suddenly emerged from behind the curtain. The atmosphere turned so dark that the travelers fled immediately. A split-second decision that honestly probably saved their lives.
Yeah. For a lot of these people.
Yeah, that wound up getting out of there, just like going with your
Hmm.
gut instinct. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Follow your gut.
Yes. If it's that, I mean, look what happened if you didn't follow your gut. So you never know. So just follow
Hmm.
it. Rather be safe than sorry.
Yeah.
They suspected that many victims attempted to fight back due to the multiple bullet holes they found in the sides and the roof of the cabin. The detectives discovered wagon wheel marks and followed them for 12 miles, where they then found an abandoned wagon belonging to the Benders. 3 horses were found starved, and one of them had a lame leg.
Aw.
Yeah. After more investigation, it was found they bought train tickets on Leavenworth, Lawrence, and Galveston Railroad heading to Humboldt, Kansas. I think that's how you pronounce it. Another town that in Kansas, sorry. But at this stop in Chanute, Kansas, Kate and John Jr. got off of the train and jumped onto the MK&T, which stands for Missouri, Kansas, Texas Railroad, and it appeared they were headed to Denison, Texas. I think of a lot of what we found of where they are is speculation. I couldn't find definitively that like they found like in their investigation they went
Mhm.
and I'm guessing they questioned and figured out where they traveled, but
Yeah.
nobody has eyes on them. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Of where they're traveling. So that's why I think a lot of this is speculation as to where they went. I don't know how they would have known that like John Jr. and Kate split up when you'll see like I said in the beginning, they vanish into thin air.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of this is speculation.
Which I guess was a lot easier to do back then. Sound like they had the news would have been very slow to produce this story
Yeah.
if they even were making newspapers then.
Yeah, I mean, well, the reporters were out, but think about it. That reporter,
Mhm.
like local reporters were reporting on it, but like the New York
Mhm.
City and Chicago one, they probably had to come out here, get the report, travel horse and buggy back to Chicago, back to New York,
Mhm.
and report on it. So it was probably like it was not a timely investigation
Yeah.
because of the time, you know.
Yeah, it's probably like a literally a week of travel back and forth.
Yeah. Well, if you see, the benders, I couldn't see, and they wouldn't know how long that wagon was abandoned, but they only traveled
Mhm.
12 miles in a wagon that then broke down and they got on a train. Do you know what I mean? Who knows how long it
Yeah.
took them to travel that 12 miles?
Mhm.
They thought Kate and John Jr. made their way to Outlaw Colony near the border of New Mexico. No law would ever make their way there to this area because most do not return.
Oh.
The two older Benders continued on their train to Kansas City. From there, they traveled to St. Louis, Missouri. But this story, and also the hundreds of other stories that came out over the next few decades, were probably speculated stories or just made up. There were a lot that I read that were probably made up stories.
Yeah.
Most were heroes claiming they killed the family. Um, some people claim that the family died in a gunfight. There were also numerous reports of men looking like John Sr. who died but were never confirmed to be him. There was one incident a man in Idaho had died, and they asked someone from Cherryvale to come identify the body, but by the time that someone had arrived, there was too much decomposition to identify him.
Hmm.
Police ended up arresting 12 men for, in one way or another, being involved with the Benders.
Hmm.
One man forged a letter home to a man's wife saying he had arrived safely, so he was arrested. A bunch of other men helped dispose of some of the bodies, apparently, and were paid by the sale of the stolen goods. And I wanted to go over the victims and kind of give you the small timeline of how these victims lined up. So it started in May of 1871 is when William Baldwin Jones was found in Drum Creek with a crushed skull and a slit throat. The next February in 1872, the two unidentified men were found in the prairie and with the same injuries. Next victims were victims 4 to 19, were found in December of 1872, starting with a man by the name Ben Brown, and he was found buried in the orchard. W.F. McCarthy, who was a veteran, was reported missing with a team of horses and a wagon, and his body was found. Henry Mackenzie went missing while moving from Hamilton County, Indiana to Independence, Kansas, and he also had a team of horses, and they were reported missing and he was found. Johnny Boyle was riding his pacing horse, which is a type of racehorse, and he was using his $850 saddle, which
Hmm.
this blew my mind. I don't know if facts are straight and if I calculated this correctly, but an $850 saddle back then would be a $23,000 saddle nowadays,
Why
is
would
what
a
it said.
saddle back then even cost that much?
Well, it was his prized racehorse, so I'm guessing like he probably had money and was like he wanted a nice saddle. Um,
Hmm.
but I don't know if saddle prices go that high, so I don't know. Could be wrong.
That's crazy.
Yeah. His body was found. Victims 8 and 9 were George Newton Longcore and his infant daughter that I had mentioned earlier. So George, his wife, 21-year-old Mary Jane, and their two kids, his infant son and the older daughter, were neighbors to none other than Charles Ingalls, the father of Laurel Ingalls, who wrote The Little House on the Prairie. I don't know if you're familiar with that,
Oh,
Kirsten.
yeah.
So they were their neighbors. Neighbors. They were their neighbors. After tragically George's wife and infant son died of pneumonia, he packed up his daughter to head to his parents' place in Iowa. George had purchased a bunch of horses for his journey from his neighbor, Dr. William York, who came looking for him and was also murdered himself.
Hmm.
His daughter was buried with him, and there were no signs of how she was murdered. So that is why they think it was either strangulation or buried alive.
Oh gosh, I hope it wasn't that one.
God, I hope
I
not.
mean, they're both terrible, but
Yeah. And they were
the
found
second one's scary.
buried in the apple orchard. Yeah. I literally I put in here like I almost put a little note like I don't even want to think about a child being buried alive. So we're just
No.
gonna say she was strangled,
Yeah.
which is not much better, but
Yeah. That's what we'll think.
ugh. Victims John Greery, Red Smith, and Abigail Roberts were all found buried in the apple orchard. Body parts to 3 additional victims were found in the apple orchard, this bringing the victim to 16. 4 more bodies of men that remain unidentified were found in Drum Creek, all with crushed skulls and slit throats.
Hmm.
One of these men could have been Jack Bogart, whose horse was sold by the Benders to a friend after he went missing in 1872, but it was never confirmed to be him. And then the final victim found was William York, and he was suspected to be the 20th victim.
That's crazy.
Only, yeah, only the bodies of Mackenzie, York, Longcores, and McCarthy were claimed, while the remainder of the bodies that were never claimed or identified were buried about 1 mile southeast of the Bender's Orchard. This area is now known as the Bender's Mounds. Just north of Cherryvale, where this all started, that's what the town is called nowadays. At the rest area off of Route 400 and Route 169, you can find a historical marker describing the Benders' crimes. Where do you think the Benders went? We would be here all day if I went over all of the theories that I have.
I mean, they definitely got the heck out of Dodge. That's for sure.
Yeah,
They
man.
knew people were onto them.
Well, they got the heads up. And like not that they
Mhm.
like it makes sense they got the heads up. If you knew somebody was doing it in the community and then you have a community meeting that says, "Well, we're going to search every home." I don't know.
Right.
What did you think was going to happen? And a guilty person's not going to stick around, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
but yeah, that's the Benders killing 20 people and vanished. That's it.
Yeah. And like, what were they doing it for? I guess just to rob them to sustain themselves.
Yeah, that's all I could think. I mean, there probably was the underlying like psychopaths. There has to be.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's
Like,
like you moved the whole way here from another country just to kill people.
Yeah. Yeah. And get like it had because some of the victims weren't weren't carrying a lot on them or like anything that was worthwhile. I do
Hmm.
wholeheartedly think it was a thrill for them. I mean, like I said, it's fucking Kansas. You're in 1870. You
Hmm.
know, like I'm not saying murder should be entertainment, but like I feel like
Right.
they started something and it probably started as like, oh, we'll rob them, we'll get some money, and then
Hmm.
I bet it probably spiraled into like I don't know, hobby. I don't want to use that word, but you know what I mean? Like just like doing it to do it. And
Yeah, I
then
don't know. Yeah.
because I mean,
It's
20
like
is a
how
lot.
much were they getting out of these people?
Well, if they were selling it, I mean, yeah, how much were they? Because also, who is buying these things? Are they really finding and getting enough money for all these belongings? Like we're in the middle of
Right.
Kansas, but it obviously
Hmm.
was worthwhile enough for them to keep doing it.
And it's interesting that the whole family participated. It wasn't
Whole
like it was
family.
just the parents.
Nope. Yeah, that's getting four of them all on board to kill everybody.
And then you mentioned something earlier about 12 children.
The Elvira had 12 kids. And
What were
so
these other kids at?
that was another theory was that there was a whole nother theory story that I wound up not including because it was super long and ended up like not seeming like it was Elvira at all, but it was a story of like these two women who were arrested and the one was claiming that she was a daughter, but the woman who they suspected to be Elvira never confirmed who she was. And
Hmm.
I'm not saying it wasn't her, but I think it's also a solid theory that maybe they ran off to go be with some of these. They could have hid with these other kids, or went to other family members or something. I don't know if they ever investigated. Like, how are you going to locate them back in 1870?
Right, yeah. Unless they killed their other children.
I mean, they could. She apparently killed some of the husbands, and I believe that she seemed like the
Hmm.
ruthless one out of all of them, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, she was the ringleader.
Yeah, and everybody. I mean,
Makes
everybody
you wonder what was
willingly
her upbringing
participated.
like? What did her parents do?
Yeah, I mean, they. I'm going to guess they probably came from Germany. And well, he
Hmm.
did at least. She was reportedly born in the Adirondacks. So,
Hmm.
yeah,
Maybe she was inbred.
it's a high possibility, to be honest. Tis the 1800s.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah,
That's
so
interesting.
I hope you guys like that. You can share some theories. I know there's not much to go on. It's literally Kansas back in
Hmm.
the 1870s, but
Yeah. I hope their bloodline died out.
God, I hope so. Yeah,
I hope they all
that'd be
died
icky.
somehow and never reproduced again.
Yeah, I hope like all those kids never had kids.
Yeah.
Gross. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up.
Please hit the bell to be notified of future uploads. Please subscribe and keep looking around for our next video. Bye.
Bye.